thing about that question is when I sat down to answer it, I was like, I don't know, there's so many things I'm passionate about. Where do I start? You know? But you got to ask yourself the question. You've really got to name it. Second thing, how would you sum up your message? That's really relevant because, I think you all know, the media works in sound bites, right? Yeah? You've got to have your sound bites. You can't just tell your story. So you've got to be able to sum up your message. You know, if you're on an interview on radio and the host asks you a question, you go past 90 seconds, you're out of there. They'll bump the interview. Guess what? You know, a hot news story came up, or whatever reason they're going to give you, you're out of there. So you've got to have soundbite answers for all of your. You've got to know what your message is, and then have soundbite answers. You want to know, is there anything controversial going on in the news, like Janet, like Lou? Also, is your message in the news in any way? Doesn't have to be controversial. You know, an example of that is. Does anybody here know that October is National Adopt a Shelter Pet Month? No, you probably didn't know that. Well, it is. We probably know October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, right? Well, here's a little tip. There's a Google Chase's calendar, C-H-A-S-E''S. I think it's apostrophe S. Either Chase's calendar or Chase calendar. And Chase's calendar has every national holiday. I mean, it's like this thick. So no matter what your topic is, there is a national holiday, I can guarantee it. And you want to use that. And that's another way that your message is in the news, to tie your message into the news. The other thing is you want to come up with talking points. What are the things that you want to discuss? Guys, you need to, in order for you to give a good interview, you need to be at cause over it. You need to know what your messages are, because if you don't give it to the media, they're going to ask you whatever the heck you want, and then you've just spent all this time and energy on a show that produces nothing. So you want to have your talking points nailed, right? 5, 7, that's it. What are talking points? Okay, those are questions that you want the media to ask you so that you're able to get out your message. So you want to define what are your talking points. It's very, very key. Let's go over how you use that. This is the other thing. In a radio pitch, by the way, has anybody ever been interviewed here on radio? Anybody ever been a guest? Oh, great. Wow, okay. That's good. I was interviewed on radio for my book, and I have to tell you a funny thing. So here I am, I'm a host. I've had my own talk radio show for 4 years. I thought, I'll nail it. You know, I know a good interview, I know a bad interview. Not at all. And I didn't realize it until I had I think it was my 30th radio interview or whatever. I'm having this great interview. Host, when we get off the air, the host says, oh, Marsha, that was such a great interview. And, you know, it was so much better than the first one we did. And I had a smile on my face, and I was thinking, oh, good, I'm really glad. And as soon as I got off the phone, I checked with my staff. It was the first radio interview I did for my book. So he even saw the difference. So it may be that you've been interviewed as a guest on radio, but you really have to prepare for a new message that you may be being a guest on. Does that make sense? You know, because you don't have your sound bites down. So here's how we do our radio pitches. And this, by the way, guys, we get so much feedback from the media because of our formula. They love us. We're one of the top resources for guests on radio. Why? Because I realized early on, if I do their job for them, the likelihood of me booking my clients is going to be greater. Okay, what does that mean? I can get paid that week, right? This is the early days. I had to figure it out. So here's how we do it. The headline. Key. Really key. I've hired so many writers for my company over the years, and this is where they always get in trouble. The simplicity of your headline is this. If somebody reads that headline, namely the producer, because they're the ones that are going to get it, can they hear the show? The show has to give them an immediate, the headline has to give them an immediate concept of what that show is. And you know what? If you can't hear it, it's not good. It's not going to fly. Because you've got maybe 10 seconds of the attention of that radio producer. So they've got to hear the show. Second thing we do, just a brief topic summary, maybe 2 paragraphs. And that's even long, but 2 paragraphs to give them, okay, they've got the headline, they've got the concept of the show, then you've got the topic summary. They have an idea of what the topic is going to be about, enough to whet their appetite. Then you give them your talking points, right? And then you give them the meat. Why do you give them the meat of your topic? Because a lot of hosts, I have to confide in you in this, they're not going to read your book. They're not. Most of them don't have the time, the interest, whatever to prepare. It's interesting. I have 2 other co-hosts on my show. I'm the only one that prepares. Why? I don't know. It's my personality. I want to make sure I know it all. And maybe it's because of my business. My other hosts don't prepare. They read from the cheat sheet that we get from the clients. So you want to give them all the meat so that they can conduct a good interview. Again, this comes from the basic theory of do their work for them, right? And then, of course, you want to give them the bio information that they're going to use to introduce you as a guest. So you really want to pump it up. Whatever great accomplishment you had, you want to make sure it's in that bio, okay? That's the format. Let me give you some examples, okay? And I'm going to give you this. I chose this particular client as an example for a reason. This is a dentist, Dr. Katz. You may even know some of his products, TheraBreath. They're all over the country, in all the Walmarts and supermarkets and whatever. My challenge as a PR is he's a dentist with bad breath products, okay? There's A, it's really hard to tie into the news. B, not a whole lot of angles that we can work with. Anybody here know Dr. Earl Mindell, the Vitamin Bible, Soy Bible? Any of you? Yeah? Earl's been a client of mine forever. Well, Earl can talk about anything because he's a health guy. So no matter what illness is in the news, he can talk about it. When Viagra came out in 1997, Earl was on the phone and he was like, Marsha, let's go with the herbal Viagra story. I was like, of course, of course. We went out with a pitch, and in 2 weeks, we had him booked on 55 radio shows because Earl could talk about anything. Well, Harold is wonderful, but it's still bad breath, okay? But I'm only showing you, I wanted to, because you're going to see what we had to do because he's an ongoing client. He's been with me for 6 years. As a matter of fact, speaking to the point of the power of PR, because this is the message I really want you to walk away with, is here's a guy, he's got a $25 million company. He used to do half advertising, half PR. I just found out 95% of his ad budget is now PR because he's so good at it and it's become so effective for him. Okay, can you hear the show in that headline? Does your boss have bad breath? Yeah? That's a perfect example. Here's another one. Can you hear the show in that? You're the producer. You got 10 seconds. What are the 5 worst holiday foods that cause bad breath? That's our topic summary. You can see the length of it. And then discussion questions. Okay, so this was obviously around Christmas one year. Okay, it's August. We ran out of topics. So what did we do? Okay, who would have known? National Fresh Breath Day is August 6th. Thanks to my trusty Chase's calendar, okay? We went out on this angle. It worked. Okay, February, St. Patrick's Day. Here's another angle. Will St. Patrick's Day green beer give you green breath? They loved it. You know, because also, you know, FM stations love the entertaining. They like the information. They love the fast, informative, and entertaining format. So this kind of thing goes over really well with them. Here's another February one. Mind you, he's been on for years, so we had to keep coming up with stuff. Here's another holiday one. By the way, this is all true. It is bad for your breath. This one. This was great. This actually got us the opportunity to get him as a blogger with the Huffington Post. Any of you familiar with the Huffington Post? She's huge. Ariana Huffington is huge. We sent her this, we did a whole article for him on that. And he's now a blogger with them. But they love this. I mean, can you hear the show, the 10 Jeremy's? I mean, if I heard the promos for the show, I want to know what those 10 Jeremy's places are, you know? So there was that. New Year's, another angle, holiday angle. I'm pointing out these particularly because they're not easy. I think probably many of you would have easier ones to work with. This is not my dentist, by the way. This is an author of a book on natural treatments you've never heard of. This guy worked for a company that had systemic enzymes. He also had a book. We were challenged with booking him 30 radio interviews for a year. And the company was willing to pay lots of money if we could do that. So we had to come up with all kinds of angles. And this one obviously worked well. There's another one. You see that headline, Is Work Killing You? You can hear the show. You can hear what the conversation is. So that's the radio thing. This is what a local pitch would look like for local TV. This is a woman. Is it ever too late to reinvent yourself? The same formula. The headline works. You get the immediate concept of the show. And then we have the segment questions, okay? This is just related to one of our clients, Darlene Quinn, She Reinvented Herself. The woman, we booked her on That Much Media, and now William Morris has requested a copy of her book. By the way, again, my only point is to say you never know what will happen. You also won't know what won't happen if you don't get out on the playing field and play in the media. Because I have story after story after story of what happened with some of my clients from doing a radio show or a TV. You just don't know who's listening, right? So let's talk a little bit about, I'm trying to wrap up. I want to give you some real key things and then open up for Q&A. This is really relevant. When you're on the air, if you're doing a radio interview, be enthusiastic. I have had guests on my show who were so boring, I didn't know, oh my God, why are you doing this to me? You can't be boring. You have to be passionate. You have to have energy. You have to be enthusiastic about your message, or else the interviewer is going to cut you short. You've got to smile when you're on the air. You know what? I don't care where you are. You're in your bedroom. You're at your office. Smile, because that comes across when you're on the air. Don't use a cell phone. You all probably know this. Why? The phone drops. They're not going to call you back. I don't care where you're at in the interview. You've lost that interview opportunity. Don't sound like an infomercial. Key, critical. The last thing you want to do is answer with things like, oh yeah, it's in my book. Or, yeah, you can get my book at blah, blah. No, that's really bad. You know, a dear friend of mine who is a media coach to the national talk show, about 5 or 6 of the national talk shows hosts, Bill Bennett, Michael Medved, Michael Savage, Gallagher. I mean, that's his job. He's a media coach. So when I came out with my book, I said, Lee, give me your help, whatever, you know, coach me. So I flew into Auburn, met with him for a day. And one of the most important, valuable things that he said to me is, know your host. Why? Because here's why. The host has already done the job of engaging his audience. He's done that. That's why he's a host. So what do you have to do? You have to engage the host. Don't worry about the audience. Engage that host. How do you do it? Go on the website. Listen to some of the shows. Find out if he's talking about his brother or his wife or his dogs. What's his personality like? What's the tone of his communication? Know your host. Once you have that data, you're more able to engage him. And if you engage him, you've got it nailed. Now, one of my interviews that I did for my book, did I ever even have to promote it? Because every one of I knew I had to engage those hosts. And as a talk show host, I knew what that meant. And then they would always be, Marsha, where can my listeners get your book? 3 times. They would give out the website address. I did not have to do that. So that datum is really, really vital. If you make friends with the host, you've got it made. He was telling me the story about Laura Ingraham. He produced that show. And they had on an author who, I don't know, he had media coaching. And whoever the media coach was trained him to answer every question with, it's in my book, it's in my book, it's in my book. After the third, it's in my book, Laura, she cut him off so quick. That was the end of him on that show.